Alright, so before we get in here and we talk about how to bring this guy into low res and do UVs, I want to talk about just a few things we can add to him to make him a little bit more interesting, have a little bit more character to him. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust this tail even more. Right now, it's going to work just fine, but let's make it a little bit nicer. So we're going to come in here and Dynamesh this real quick at a much lower res, which I've already done. I'm just going to smooth this out. Smooth it out quite a bit. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit more length to it. Just not quite feeling like he'd be able to hold himself up too much on that tail. And we're going to come in with our inflate tool and reduce the intensity a little bit more. A little too low. There we go. I'm thinking about putting just like a spiked club at the end of it. I think that'd be pretty cool. So to do that, we're going to obviously need some spikes. Let's come in here with our inflate and inflate this a little bit more. Inflate the bottom and hit Dynamesh. And just make a couple quick adjustments, and we're going to move it back a little bit and into the body a little bit. All right, now let's taper this in a little bit more. Getting a bit wide. Really just trying to establish that main shape that we like. Alright, so now we're going to need some spikes. We already have this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the mask real quick on it. I'm going to duplicate it. And we don't need both of these, we only need one of them for right now. So let's split off the mask section. So split mask points. We're going to grab this guy, we can just delete him. And this guy, we want to come down to our geometry menu, Dynamesh, make sure to polish him real quick, a little higher res. Alright, so we need to create a spike out of this. So first thing we got to do is get it a little wider, and then we're going to come to our trim dynamic tool. And then our H polish tool. Do another polish real quick. Then we're going to come to our pinch tool. Take a look at it. That's a usable spike. And we're just going to put this into the head in place of the other stuff. So now I'm just going to place these. So I'm going to hit duplicate, move it down, rotate it out, rotate it a little bit in. I can get rid of these guys. They're not doing anything for me anymore. I'm changing these spikes because I feel like I wanted something to be a little bit thicker on him, and everything on him was pretty thin, like at least spike-wise, detail-wise. This guy should be a pretty bulky character, so I want to emphasize that when I can. Come to the side, kind of stuff that in there. I'm not liking that. Let's just rotate it, scale it in. So the next bit of time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be placing spikes around, so I'll be using a combination of duplicating, moving stuff around, using some mirror and weld right there. Reshaping a little bit as necessary. Using the move brush. Coming back here, we're going to duplicate this again. Smooth that off a little bit, smooth this off a little bit. And I'm going to continue these spikes down the back to probably about here. But I also want to put spikes on the tail, so let's show our tail. This spike obviously needs to be quite a bit bigger than what it is right now. So scale it up, rotate it down. I'm going to quickly rotate it around so I can see what I'm working with. I'm going to do a geometry, a mirror and weld. Undo that real quick. I'm going to move it off to the side a little bit and do a mirror and weld, just so we're symmetrical. And then just kind of squeeze it in. Just want to get that sharp in the middle again. There we go. All right, this one we're going to make a little bit longer, a little bit wider, and now we're just going to come down here and we're going to start placing this at the bottom of the tail. Now I'm going to do this exactly the same way as I did the other one. So I'm going to place the first one, then I'm going to subtool, I'm going to duplicate this guy. I'm going to rotate it around. Just kind of place things. Going to duplicate this one, and I'll continue doing this until I feel like I've got some pretty good stuff going on. But if you want to, what you can do is you can come onto this guy here. Let me hide you. So I come to this guy here. I want to change the shape a little bit. Come on, come here, you. So come to my trim dynamic. Maybe I want the sides to be a little bit more on the hard side. So just take that same piece and reshape it. There we go. Now you've got a different kind of spike. And you can realistically make as many of these as you want. You can make as many as many of them varied as you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place some on the tail. I'm going to place some on the back using exactly what I've shown so far. All I'm doing is duplicating the mesh and moving it around. So I'll be back with the spikes placed. Oh, I think I'm also going to put some on the elbows as well. So just using duplicate, move, scale, rotate, and kind of placing them as you think they fit. All right, so I'll be back in just a moment with the place scales. All right, here we go. Now we've gone and placed all the spikes. Just a little bit down the tail, got some on the elbows, kind of flared them out at the top, brought them down the back of the spine a little bit. We have a few different shapes that we made using the exact methods that I showed you earlier, just kind of as the base of that tail. So next thing I want to do is I want to make this tail look a little bit better. So I'm going to just do a couple of divides real quick. I'm going to change the style up from what I did earlier. I'm going to make this look a little simpler in a lot of ways. I'm going to quickly come in here and I'm going to draw a mask. Let's hide everything but this tail. And this is really just a small little limited guide for me for later. Notice I'm being a little messy with it. It's totally fine. Essentially, I'm setting up just a line for like a thick row of scales. So now I want to add a couple scales here, 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 here. Maybe some here, here. Okay. Probably redraw that mask a little bit later and do this a little bit again to make it look a little bit nicer. So we're going to extract this real quick. See how thick this turns out. Extract. That's actually not too bad. Oops, wrong tail. Alright. So now we got a thicker line of scales for the back, which will help us out a little bit later when we're painting. Let's hide this main body because it's a little high res. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I just want to detail out a little bit of this front. That's just going to be using my standard brush. Just kind of come in here and near the top I'm going to give it some wrinkles. Make it look like it's got some more detail in it than it actually does. Maybe I'll come in here and I'll add a couple little dots, a couple little things to make it look, to deceive you, to make it look like it's actually got some detail in it when it doesn't have that much. I'm being pretty non-specific about it. The main thing is the overall shape, just like everything else. Coming in with my standard brush, just kind of giving it some form. And there we go. Just a little bit nicer than it was. It's also simpler in a lot of ways too. There you go, that reads pretty nicely. We'll come in there and I'll detail it out a little bit more later. Just a couple small little tweaks to it maybe.